Welcome to the Upshot, Multi-World Disc Golf's podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. I'm the editor, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me is Josh Mansfield. It is Tuesday, November 22nd. We are in the thick of the off-season. Thanksgiving is almost here. Safe travels to anybody who is going out into the world. Weather is pretty good across the United States right now, so I feel like people's flights will be good. I'm in a hotel in Salt Lake City right now. I had no problems flying earlier today, so I hope that everybody else has that same experience.
Is Buffalo still 6 feet under?
I forgot about those folks.
Okay, I was like...
If you live in New York City, what goes on in upstate New York, it's like, that's not a place that I go. No, they got dumped on. I think the storm is over, though, so I imagine they can still fly out if they want. But yes, absolutely crushed by snow.
Did you see the memes of 5'7" Devin Singletary trying to run through this?
So good. We lost him. We're going to, of course, have a little show on Thanksgiving. It is Thursday. It'll be recorded beforehand, of course. And so we will have a short show for some things that we're thankful for this year from the disc golf universe. And we got some great emails from you as well. So, Josh, we have a fun one today. We've been talking about this one for a little while, and we'll get a chance to do it. Sports envy. What are we envious of from other sports that disc golf doesn't really have for us in the same way? So we're going to dig into some sports and some things that we like about other sports. So this is really a show for all the people who just really cannot stand it when we talk about anything other than disc golf. But I will say this, we are going to tie everything back into how disc golf could try to get some of these things. So it should be hopefully illuminating, and we'll of course look forward to hearing your emails of the things that you'd like to see disc golf find a way to incorporate. Upshot@ultiworld.com is the way to get in touch, or become a subscriber. Join the Ultiworld Disc Golf Discord, where really this week everyone's just talking about the World Cup, and maybe that's a place that we will begin. Josh, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so this is, when I was making the list of sports, this is the first one that came to my mind, thanks to the World Cup happening right now. When I think of sports envy for soccer or football for our European listeners, I think of the World Cup as being the number one thing that I wish disc golf had. You know, we have our President's Cup, United States versus Europe, but as the sport continues to develop and grow in other countries besides the United States, and, you know, we've got strong European presences, Canadian presence, but we've also seen the increase in growth of the sport in places like West Africa, as well as in South America, thanks to the Paul Macbeth Foundation. And so as those continue to grow and we have more and more disc golfers from every country, I want disc golf to have a true World Cup that happens once every 4 years, that really ties in and brings in the national identity that I think soccer has done such an excellent job of doing, and that disc golf could really benefit from as well.
So this sort of exists. The World Flying Disc Federation does host a tournament, the World Team Disc Golf Championships, that is along the lines of what you're talking about. The problem is nobody goes, nobody cares. I shouldn't say nobody. I mean, obviously, there's still an event, and some Europeans in particular go, but you're not going to see a lot of big names, and you're certainly not going to see any of the big U.S. touring names. The challenge with a concept like this, as great as it is, it just feels a little tough with how good the U.S. is. Like,
it is.
The U.S. is destroying Europe every year. Europe. All of Europe.
Right.
Not just Finland. Not just Estonia, all of Europe getting crushed every year in President's Cup. So that, I think that's the problem. I don't really know what you do about that. I do like the idea of having more sort of like that opportunity to just tune in and root for your country.
Yeah,
that's such a fun part of the World Cup. But the competitive disparity is so massive right now that I don't know how well we can get there. Is there a middle ground?
I don't know. One possible middle ground is you could potentially like pair up countries. So like United States gets paired with wherever, Australia, and Finland and Canada get paired up. Like I could see a world where that like that there's a competitive, especially on the FPO side with our Finnish women, that could be like a legitimate contest. But I think there are some ways and some exploration that takes place. This is not a next year thing. This probably isn't a next 4 years thing. This is maybe a decade down the road or longer, but I think it's a good thing to keep in mind as we're kind of orienting ourselves towards more international disc golf, is to have an opportunity to showcase the best national talent from every country that is seen as a legitimate World Cup of disc golf. And even if the United States wins for the first 3 iterations of it, the underdog story that is possible and exists in that moment could be such a big deal. And I really think it needs to prioritize singles competition, not team, at least in the onset, because in doing so, someone like Nicholas Antila could win that event. Sure. He almost won the US championship. There's no reason that you couldn't have a really excellent European player who's able to take it from the United States. And so I imagine it as being individual play, at least to start. But having that kind of World Cup to root for and follow your country, I think would be a really excellent opportunity to kind of build the international sense of community around disc golf.
And I will say this, in Ultimate Frisbee, the U.S. also has a massive advantage, but particularly in events where they narrow the field a lot and the teams are small, it gives other countries a fighting chance. So if you only had, let's say, 2 men and 2 women from each country, the U.S. is still going to probably have the best 4 players overall, but it's not going to be some massive gulf, especially if you think ahead and like a country like Estonia, for example, can get a male player that's good enough to be at this level alongside Kristen Tatar, for example.
Right. Yeah.
So I love the concept. I hope we get there. I got one for you. Okay. How about this? Baseball. Now, a lot of people complain about baseball all the time, that the game is too slow, blah, 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 blah. The thing that's really great about baseball is that you can go to a game anytime for like 6 months of the year. You can just be like, you know what? We should go to a baseball game this week. And the odds are that there will be a baseball game in your city in that week. Now, if you live in a bigger city, so that to be fair, but they're also close by,
We have a farm league.
There you go. Double A, triple A,
no.
Single A,
lower,
below A.
Yeah, it's not because so Idaho Falls has the Pioneer League that's like a triple A affiliate league, but then we have it's called the Gate City Grays. It's the Northern Utah League. There are 6 teams in it, and there's no salaries. They pay for your travel and that's it. It's a bunch of former college baseball players who come and play baseball. It's a great time. Don't get me wrong, but I wouldn't even, maybe if there was a B, then maybe that should be a side of that.
So there you go. But yes, if you're in a city, you probably have some level of organized baseball that you can go and watch.
Yes.
And so obviously, disc golf's you're not going to be able to watch a Pro Tour tournament anytime you want to go see one. But is there a way for us to improve the overall access to disc golf? Right now, you got to live in certain parts of the country to have it even be close to you. And I think that's improving slowly, but there's still areas of the country where it's maybe a little challenging to find a tournament nearby that would be worth going to watch.
Yeah, I think part of that is the development of A tiers across states that are really, whether we've talked a little bit about this in terms of region, but if each state, for example, you were divided up into 3 or 4 major sections, depending on the state, maybe something like Texas gets more, and then ensuring that an A tier, giving priority on the A tier calendar to the first to one tournament from each region, and then other A tiers are second in priority, so it disperses A tier competition. Those are the kind of events that I could see people being willing to maybe come and see as the disc golf, the level of disc golf competitiveness increases. So it's about ensuring that there is some regional, representation in each state to go watch an A tier at least once a year per se. I
think the challenge for disc golf right now is that, when you go to even like a the game you're describing. A league that you don't even know, like we don't know anything about it, right? It's the Northern Utah League. But it's got former college baseball players. Those players are relatively better than like 95% of disc golfers at their thing, right? Like if you go to an A tier even in disc golf and you go watch the lead card, like he might not really be that impressive.
Right.
But you go to watch former college baseball players. I mean, these guys are throwing 85 miles an hour. They can hit home runs. Like it looks a lot like real baseball.
Yeah.
And so I think you're right. Like the depth of the sport needs to grow substantially for that to become a reality. Yeah,
that's a good point. All right. Next up, this one is not one of, we'll come back to it. I'm going to go with football next. So American football. I think the number one thing that I wish disc golf could get from American football is their production quality. You cannot, there are a lot of things that you can have problems with about American football, but they are year in, year out, the number one most consumed form of entertainment in the United States. And they draw billions of dollars at their biggest events. Their production quality is through the roof, and media companies pay hundreds of millions of dollars a year for the rights to just broadcast that sport, which means that the quality is exceptional because they know the entertainment value that comes from it. I think that, we have such a long way to go, but the biggest things that I think of, professional commentating, as well as on-screen graphics, the pen where they're drawing on the course, drawing where the disc is landing, where the ideal landing zone is during the flyby. Those are the little things that are going to make the sport so much more accessible to your average viewer. That means you don't have to be a professional or really into disc golf in order to understand how the sport functions. That's the big point about football. The way that they break it down means that it's accessible both for a new time football watcher as well as the most dedicated fan.
We're a little ways off from the $1 million shows that are being put on in the NFL each week. But I do think that there are small scale things that can still get better on the budgets that exist today. And I think that as the sport grows and the budgets get bigger, that you can do more and more. But, let's start small and just fix the audio. Let's just get the audio better. I'd be good with that. But you're not wrong. The television production of like NBC Sunday Night Football is just, it's beautiful to watch.
It is.
It's beautiful to watch. Or you can tune into Amazon and listen to Al Michaels phone it in at this point, just cashing them checks. He's on Amazon. He doesn't care anymore. It's awesome.
I never thought I would watch football on Twitch. I got to be honest. That was the weirdest thing to do this season, was to log on to Twitch in order to go watch Thursday Night Football.
Wild. Okay, next one for me is basketball. This is probably my favorite sport, period, to watch. I think the biggest thing for me that basketball brings that I really wish disc golf had is just awesome highlights every game. Every, round, whatever you want to say. Disc golf has its moments. Do not get me wrong. There are some incredible moments from disc golf tournaments, particularly the big ones, where you get some crazy shot or, some insane ace, and that's fun. But every single basketball game is just wild dunks, crazy blocks, 45-foot three-point shots. It just has a level, and to be fair, it has this above a lot of games, like way above baseball.
Yes.
Pick your preference with football and basketball.
We're doing a sports envy show.
Yes. Yeah. So I think disc golf should be envious of the highlight quality that the NBA offers week in and week out. Yes, there are fun moments in disc golf tournaments, but a lot of the intrigue in disc golf is not the highlights. It's not, it's like the pressure moment and like, can they execute this shot through the woods? And like, that's cool, but it doesn't feel the same, even if you just watch it on post-production, let alone watch it a week later as like a highlight reel.
Yeah.
So that's something that I think that disc golf would love to be able to steal from the association.
I think the best way to achieve that for disc golf is more courses need holes that play under par, that give ace run opportunities, or have areas or shots that are conducive to that kind of moment. I think of Maple Hill on hole 8. I think of the Emporia Country Club, hole 16. I think of Ledgestone at Lake Eureka on hole, I think it's 17. When we've got like the skip shots off the water onto the island, right? Those are the kind of holes noteworthy. All three of them involved water, but they don't have to necessarily. You need holes though, hole 17, USDGC, you need holes that are conducive to the ace run, the exciting shots, or the brutal punishment on the rollaways, like at Worlds when Ezra hits off the cage and then it goes and just slowly trickles and rolls out of bounds. Those are the kind of holes that facilitate those kind of highlights. And on hole 16 at Worlds, I think at the Fort is an excellent example of that. I think hole 18, even at Mulligan's as well, both of those were both just really conducive to those kind of shots. That I think that disc golf needs to ensure, as we're thinking about what we want our courses to look like moving forward, there needs to be more holes like those in the nature of their near danger, their near very obvious hazard, like water. Because I think there's a sense of gravity about your disc rolling into water as opposed to like rolling into grass that's 2 inches longer next to the basket. There just is. There's a visual sense of gravity that exists with it. And so more courses need to ensure that they are facilitating those type of holes in order to create those kind of highlights that would be able to be put together for a package highlight reel. I don't know if we'll ever get NBA level, but I think that's the biggest steps that disc golf needs to make in that arena.
Yeah, and like giving players a chance to throw it really, really hard and far with the reward of being able to putt for eagle or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I still remember watching, otherwise very forgettable course, Goat Hill, Anthony Barella throwing off the downhill shot. I think it's 10, just like massive. And you have the scale because there's the big net along the left-hand side of the fairway.
Yes. So
you just get to watch just monster crushing shots. And there's a lot of courses that just do not allow that. And that's not, I don't want to see every single shot be max power driver, but like a big downhill shot is a lot of fun sometimes.
The Upshot is presented by Pound Disc Golf, makers of the best bags in the sport. Make sure you check out Pound's Custom Pack Builder, where you can customize every aspect of the bag, from the upper fabric, the lower fabric, the zippers, the sliders, the cords. You can get an Octothorpe, an Octahall, a toolbox, or even a Carlton in custom options. And stay tuned, Rufus Customs coming soon. Go to PoundDiscGolf.com to check out the Custom Pack Builder today.
Since I've been on the city council, can you guess what the number one subject of emails I have received have been?
I'm trying to think about what could be in the sports context. I hope that we need a disc golf course in town.
It is not. It is the renovation of our town's pickleball courts. Pickleball players will fill city council meetings. They will email in droves. They are the most active, mobilized group of people. Now, granted, I'm pretty sure 9 out of 10 of those people that come to those meetings and email are retired from work. So they've got the time to do it. But
it is pickleball after all.
It is pickleball after all. But the energy around pickleball right now is something that, I mean, disc golf was, we all talked about disc golf during the pandemic and how much it was growing and the excitement around it. But pickleball's I think has even more energy and excitement around it than even disc golf, and has that momentum that I really wish disc golf could have carried and continue to carry, because it feels like disc golf is losing a bit of steam. Whereas pickleball, I still am just seeing all sorts of pickleball news and getting emails from citizens who want more pickleball. We've seen like the recent sponsorship deals with LeBron James, who are signing and sponsoring big pickleball leagues. That is a type of energy that I wish disc golf could harness and could continue with in the growth of its sport as well.
Pickleball is crazy. I've started playing a little pickleball. Have you played, Josh?
I do. It is my wife's favorite sport, so we play it quite regularly.
So you got the disc golf and the pickleball in the same house.
Yes.
Pickleball is fun. It's fun. It's like, it's worse than tennis, but I get why it's like maybe growing faster and is more popular.
It's much more accessible for someone who never has played tennis and is not good at tennis.
Yes.
I don't enjoy playing tennis much because I'm just so bad at it, but I enjoy playing pickleball.
But I think there's like a virality to the game.
Mm-hmm.
The reason that you're seeing that energy is because it's so easy to play. It's so easy to put up a court somewhere.
Yes.
And just like, you don't really need that many people to get it going, and you don't need a lot of space.
Yeah.
You can almost put one on the sidewalk. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but it does not require physical space in the way that a disc golf course does. Let's be honest.
Yep.
And so that creates it's just so easy to say, yeah, look, I'll try out pickleball. Like, the learning curve is so low. I mean, it is not difficult to learn how to play just like in basic pickleball. It's like, oh, okay. Like, I know the rules in 2 minutes. And then like the scoring, like maybe takes a second with the switching of the serve and stuff, but it's just so easy to get going that and that's why it's just booming. Mm-hmm. Disc golf, it's similarly like cheap to play. You don't need a lot of equipment. You don't need a lot of equipment for pickleball, but it takes more equipment. It's hard, a lot of times harder for people to get to a place, and pickleball can be played in tight, dense urban environments.
Yep.
And I think that those things, like, I wish there was a way we could have like mini disc golf courses in cities. Like that. I mean, it sounds a little silly, but like, it would be amazing to be able to say like, oh, there's like this little 3-hole course that's in this park in New York City, and you can go, but like that would get people playing in a way that it's just literally impossible to capture large swaths of the American population because there's nothing nearby.
I think places are trying to with like pitch and putt courses that have, like putt courses that have, obstacles and different decorations, right? They're trying to capture that. And I think that's good. I think it's well-placed effort, and I think it may be successful because, as funny as it sounds, because I think putting is oftentimes a skill that holds people back, putting is also the most accessible action of disc golf. Because you've seen people who go out and try and throw backhands, and they throw it 30 feet in the air and then it just drops to the ground. And they're like, this isn't fun. It took me 70 throws just to get to a 200-foot par 3. But I think when you have a putt-putt course that's pitch and putt, that people are just doing circle 2 putts, less than 100 feet, that's a motion that people could learn, if not well, at least enough to enjoy themselves. And you could, have drinks, have a restaurant there, and have a driving range and a radar gun and a net, and you could build something like that. As well as I've seen pictures of baskets that are like Connect 4 or tic-tac-toe with putting.
Sure.
So you put those games up as well. There are ways to increase that accessibility, but you're right. I don't know if it's ever going to match that accessibility of pickleball.
All right, here's my next one. College sports. I'm primarily talking about football and basketball. But like, what's particular about college? Well, to me, it's the game day experience and the fan zones in the stadiums. The student section. Everybody's going crazy. Yes. Faces painted. People are tailgating for like 15 hours before the game, and you go in and there's like this. Everybody's on the same team all together, And, you don't get the same thing in pro sports. Maybe some, like soccer, if you're like a hardcore soccer fan and you go sit in the fan section, but it's just not the same as the student section. Mm-hmm. And so, I wish there was a way that disc golf could find a way to kind of capture that energy. Now, I think there are limited examples of this. We had the little thing at OTB Open, like the Fan Peninsula type thing.
Yep.
We've got the 8 holes at MVP at Maple Hill. That's, kinda those are starts. I think we need to figure out ways to kind of expand that horizon and have more tournaments trying to build in some of that. Let's have a cultural piece to our tournament that's not just you walk and follow the lead card. Mm-hmm. I think that's not very interesting to a lot of people. Not everybody's going to be hardcore enough to want to just follow the lead card the whole time. And you can only sell so many VIP tickets and only let so many people through without a VIP ticket.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So make a zone for people to be getting drunk and having fun.
I think it's a great idea. And I think there are courses that are going to be more naturally conducive to it. I think this pairs up with the highlights of NBA. You need it to be in the same places where those highlights happen in order to make people feel like it's worth it to stay and just watch the one hole as opposed to the entire tournament. But I agree. I think fan zones would be an incredible part. All right. My next sport, I want bowling. And bowling. I don't watch pro bowling. I want to be... It's just not anywhere on my radar. But I have a brother-in-law who's a really excellent bowler. And I remember he showed me a clip once. And at this bowling tournament, so first off, everyone's just drinking and kind of fan zone sort of camaraderie like you're describing. But during the run-up and the backswing of the bowl, people are cheering and making noise. And I was like, man, I wish disc golf would do that with every drive, every putt. I hate, and I've said this before, but I hate that disc golf decided to follow golf's attitude towards silence during pressure moments, because I think that it is counterintuitive to the kind of spectator buy-in that sports like bowling gets. Or I think another more accessible example would be NBA free throws. I wish we were yelling and cheering and razzing players during their putt. Could you imagine if at Paul's USDGC putt in the playoff with Kyle Klein, you just have people yelling in the crowd at Paul trying to get him off of his game? It'd be so much fun. I would pay money to go and harass players while they are trying to putt with a big crowd of people.
Wow. Quote that on the internet, everybody. Josh Mansfield wants to harass players on the course. I'm with you in a limited sense. I think that on particular holes for particular drives, I'm good with this. I don't think that people should just be able to be screaming their head off while people are putting. The problem is that I see with this is that it negatively impacts the leaders a lot more than people further down who don't have big galleries.
Yeah.
And so, I also just think sometimes you just really you want to have silence so you could focus on that big putt. But let's get it going. If somebody's got a huge tee shot over the water, let's get fired up.
Yeah.
And I think that there should be acceptable holes or shots where being noisy is cool. So there you go.
I think that's a great compromise. Yeah, it's a great compromise. I live for, Seattle's the 12th man. I live for those kind of fans who get opportunity to influence the game in that manner. But I think that, picking those holes at the fan zones where they get to be loud and they get to be kind of raucous, I think is a great compromise that, again, doesn't necessarily... it probably still will impact lead card more than other cards, but if the 8 holes, they're there all tournament. They're not moving, and so they could easily be cheering during the drive if that was what was permitted over there.
All right, I'm going to give you one from Ultimate Frisbee Land.
Okay.
I'm actually going to change up what I was going to say, because I think that the one I was going to say is not really something that disc golf can ever do anything about. So
Okay.
I will say this: the strategy and tactics of Ultimate are very interesting. Now, this is true of many of the sports we've discussed, so you take this as kind of like a general thing too. But when we're talking about, the flight of the disc in particular, there's certain things you can do with the disc flight that you can't do with a ball.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes the strategy interesting. And we're talking about the formation of players on the field. What kind of offensive structure do they have? How are you trying to set up your defense to force certain things on the field to happen? What makes for great offense and flow? Ultimate has a very soccer-like quality to it when it's played at the highest levels, with a lot of rhythm and flow to an offense. And being able to kind of like follow that fluidity with the underpinnings of like, what is the strategy that this team is trying to use here? Is it that they have tall players? Is it they have great throwers? Are they able to take advantage of throwing overhead throws? There's all these things that go into the game that are sort of endlessly discussed, and there's like a constantly shifting meta of what the best strategies are and how to combat the team that's got the best offense and all those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times it doesn't really feel like disc golf gets into that. There's not a lot of discussion of strategic decision making on the tee pad. I think it happens, but it's not done in a major way. And I also don't think that we're really at the point yet where color analysts can break down like what's going wrong with a player's swing and like why they're playing worse than usual. Because somebody just has a bad day. It's like, well, why are they having a bad day? I don't feel like I'm personally particularly adept at being able to identify those things. But I think that that's an area for growth for disc golf, so that we can start to talk about, what are the decisions that are getting made on the course, and were they good and were they bad and why, as opposed to just constantly talking about, well, they hit their line, they didn't hit their line. Well, okay, but like, was their line the right one to take in the first place? Was there a smarter line? I think there are players who are pretty good at talking about this kind of stuff. Brian Earhart comes to mind. But across the board, the tactics of disc golf are deeply under-discussed, at least at the commentary level and what is sort of consumed at home. I think the players themselves often have a great deal of insight into these things, and we just never get to tap into that.
The player that comes to my mind is Paul Macbeth. Whenever we interview Paul, he'll break down exactly how he was playing every holes, the strategy behind them. And I have a great appreciation for the strategy that Paul is willing to share and communicate. I think it's in part because his understanding of the game is perhaps one of the most nuanced of any disc golf player that ever. And that's part of the reason he's been so successful. But his ability to articulate it is something I think I agree with you is a skill that we need in the commentary booth more often, because it is an important part of any sport, to be honest. So, all right, the last sport. This one I had to do a lot of thinking about. And Charlie, I know you've got one that's a little bit different for me for this sport, so please feel free to add to it. But when I think of hockey, now I love hockey.
Physically crushing the other guy and getting into fistfights. That's what we're missing.
Is that it, Charlie? Is that what we're missing? Hockey is the fastest paced sport. I think it's, in my opinion, the best live sport to watch. But here's what I guess I'll pick from hockey. Hockey, in my opinion, has some of the best intermissions. They have fun games, engagement with audience. They have, because those intermissions are long. They are, because the sport is not, it doesn't have the kind of downtime that baseball or basketball has. So they have, they're just playing, and then they get a 20-minute full intermission at minimum, however long it is for NHL. I don't remember anymore. But I feel like hockey intermissions are just so excellent in the way that they engage with fans, give an opportunity for the break, the analysis if you're watching on TV. I would love that the Pro Tour does something both for fans in person, right, in between rounds, that the concert series is one example that comes to mind, but other intermission in between rounds for fans. But the other thing is, I think the Pro Tour needs to have a show at the end of the Disc Golf Network that is not just like the commentary afterwards, the discussion, but like a breakdown of the movement of individual players, a recap show that happens on the Disc Golf Network, 1 hour after the action, or however, whenever after, that becomes released on their YouTube that you can go back and watch before the next round, that summarizes everything, that has highlights, the entire package. It's a post game. It's a post round. They need a legitimate, thorough post round every round.
I'll say this, as somebody who commentates on the Disc Golf Network, after I've just talked about disc golf for 4 hours, the last thing I want to do is then continue to talk about the disc golf after the round is over, immediately following the round. There's a reason that in pro sports, they throw it to a studio show.
Yes.
And those people talk about what we just watched.
Yes, because it shouldn't be you.
We don't want to just hear the same voice the whole time.
Right.
And it's also just, it's like a different thing. You're prepping totally differently for the two different things. And, obviously there is a little bit of a post-game thing happening now on DGN, but you're right. A highlight show with, a look at the movement of the player. I mean, that's a killer idea. I don't know how we went from hockey intermission to that, but I'll give it to you. I think it's a great idea.
It's because hockey has their post-intermission analysis, in my opinion, is very good on the commentator side.
Sure. Okay.
Kind of post-game for disc golf, but anyway, yeah. Hockey's the main thing of. There we go. We're crediting it to hockey.
Yeah. I mean, it's a totally achievable technical thing. I think. I think DGN could pull this off. It might take a separate producer to prepare for that show differently than the person who's running the main show. Yeah. But that's a dream, and like to get some personalities in there that would be really fun and funny to listen to. I mean, inside the NBA, I'm not a big hockey guy, but inside the NBA on TNT with Chuck and Shaq, I mean, it's great entertainment, period.
Yes.
And they talk about the sport and they talk about the highlights, but they also just say funny stuff, and it's good. Like, it's enjoyable. Like, Big Germ would be a great personality to be on something like that.
The other side note that I would add to that is it would make people, because how many people say, I don't subscribe to the Disc Golf Network because I get the YouTube for free on Sunday and I don't have time on Friday and Saturday to watch rounds. If they had a post-game show that was half an hour like this, it's post-produced, right? Like Jomez is in a sense, but if you put that behind and it's part of Disc Golf Network and it's funny, it's compelling, it has clips and strategy breakdown, like people would pay, and who are not current subscribers would subscribe so that they could just watch the post game for the rounds they can't follow and then watch live rounds.
And it's something more than just like, here's the raw highlights of the round that they put out on their YouTube channel, which for me, it's okay. Like, I'll watch it if I just don't have time to watch the live, I guess. But like, it's the lack of narration, the lack of context makes it less interesting to me than like a 30-minute post-game show.
Right.
So I like that. My thing for hockey, I mean, it was the first thing you said, and then you kind of went in a different direction. The energy of the live action is unbelievable.
Yes.
I think the way that disc golf gets there is to have, like, USDGC actually did a pretty good job of this year. They had a big stage with a giant screen, and they've got the action up on the screen, and there's the vendor village, and they've got the food and the merch, and there's like a buzz, an atmosphere that goes beyond just, we're watching this person play this round, this whole, these four players go down and we watch them the whole time. There's only so much you can do. Like, you can't really fabricate the energy of that. Like, that just is what it is. And if it's an exciting close round, it might be very fun and exciting and intense, especially if players are going shot for shot or something like that. But you have ways of doing that elsewhere at the event to kind of bring up the energy and the sort of professionalism side of things and find some of that buzz that a hockey game can have.
I think of Worlds in Utah when Ricky and Eagle at the end of their rounds. I mean, this is before the Paul James stuff, right? They are like throwing wristbands and minis and whale sacks out into the spectators. And that kind of engagement, I think, developed that buzz as well, even without the closeness of the lead card that was happening, because of that player engagement in a sports way, right? Not an autograph signing session, but the throwing stuff out and being a part of the crowd, like that was a big deal about getting that buzz like you talked about.
Well, and let's just note the bleachers along the 18th fairway, like that was a step forward in disc golf spectator entertainment that it's kind of funny that we haven't really seen it before, but like that was it. Like that was it. And it was awesome even before the shot.
Yep, it was.
So more of that.
So
more of that.
Yes. More
all right. More of all of this. More of all of these things.
That's the point of this show, right, Charlie? Is that we want more of this stuff.
Yes. So those are some of the things we like about other sports and we'd love to see in disc golf. Let us know what you think. Hit us up. Upshot@ultiworld.com. What's something you love about another sport that you wish could come to disc golf, and how would you achieve that? We'll look forward to hearing from you. That is going to do it for today's show. We'll be back with you on Thursday, and that's Thanksgiving Day, for a brief episode for some things that we're thankful for from the 2022 disc golf season. He's Josh Mansfield. I'm Charlie Eisenhood, and we'll talk to you on Thursday.